Good morning and welcome back to Will and Mabel, my Cane Corso. Now today you join us on another drizzly, pretty miserable English morning, but we're out in the woods again, we're having a little bit of fun, we're having an explore, and in today's video I really want to focus on catching you guys up of exactly where we are, both pros and cons, because unfortunately with all dog training it's not all fairy tales and dreams. There's positives and negatives, and I am unfortunately experiencing some negatives. So after we finished in the woods, I'm going to take you home and I'm going to really break down all the different things we're working on and show you where we're at with those things. But before we do that, obviously we're out for a woods, so we're going to do a little bit while we're out here, but I want to talk about some of the negatives and the difficulties that I'm facing as well. And really there's two main things that I'm pretty bad And really there's two things I'm struggling with. The first one being crying. I mentioned it in a previous video, she is a crier. I kind of did go out my way to choose a very sensitive, submissive, relaxed dog. With that comes that they are a little bit more clingy, a little bit more prone to separation anxiety, a little bit more prone to crying and behaviours like that. So I was prepared for it, but she is the most cryingiest puppy that I've experienced. But we're just being consistent, ignoring all crying behaviours. She never gets what she wants through crying, she always gets what she wants through being calm, patient and relaxed, and it'll just take a little bit more time. The other thing we're really struggling with is toilet training. Now toilet training again is a thing that I've never had difficulties with, and with the last dog that I raised from a puppy, my Labrador, within a couple of days I'd say we were perfect. We're a few weeks in now and we were getting there, and I did what I always tell people not to do, and that was I got complacent. I thought we were doing well, and then I decided to kind of let off the gas a little bit, and I did do that because I was really poorly, so I was kind of lounging around a bit more and not as focused and watching as I should be, but I was struggling a little bit, and she seems to have regressed a little bit with toilet training. And it kind of came to a head when I was outside in the absolute pissing rain in England, freezing my nips off in the middle of the night. 10 minutes I was out there with her for. Didn't do anything, and I thought, okay, maybe she just doesn't need to do anything. Came back inside, the second she stepped through the front door, she did a wee on the floor. Now, I understand at that moment, that's where it's so frustrating and you want to correct your dogs. And although I do use verbal corrections, like a or any kind of just to snap their attention, to then redirect them onto the behaviour that you want, I do understand people's frustrations and why you want to use those old wives' tales of things like rubbing their nose in it or things like that, but that absolutely doesn't work whatsoever. It's a myth. Some form of correction does work. I've never had to use any physical correction on my Labrador that was the last dog I trained, or so far on Mabel we just use verbal corrections to let them know, but you've got to use your timing impeccably, and that's why I promote using positive reinforcement and don't talk about corrections much, because 99% of the time you should be using positive reinforcement as opposed to any kind of correction. But we're going to have to kind of strip it right back now and go back to basics, give the house a thorough clean, remove any scent of any toilet accidents whatsoever, and then go right the way back to taking them out every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, high value rewards. And yeah, something that I'm struggling with. But before we go back home, and I want to really show you some of the obedience stuff we're doing, some of the manners stuff we're doing, some of the crate training stuff we're doing, I really want to just enjoy, even though it's miserable and rainy and wet, I want to enjoy this lovely morning out in the wilderness, because it is my favourite thing to do. So I think it's time to cue up a nice silky slow-mo montage of the cutest puppy in the world in a lovely outdoor environment, and then I'll see you back at home in probably about 30 seconds. So let's have a good catch up of where we've got to over the last few days. And the first thing we'll start with is a good old game of fetch. Now, Mabel really isn't toy motivated whatsoever, but we have really started to build up the concept of having a little bit of a game of fetch, because if you can have a good game of fetch, it's the quickest, most efficient way of tiring your dog out if you're ever in a pinch. And it's just really fun to be able to play with them anyway. So we have been working on it and we are starting to get there. So let's see if we can demonstrate now for you. So we always start by trying to get excited. As you can see, she's not overly toy motivated. Yes, good, yes, yes, good. What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? Not playing ball whatsoever. She is quite tired, and like I say, she's not toy motivated really, so I'm not going to set her up for failure. I did, as you saw, I did kind of get her to go. Yesterday she was then bringing that back, heavily reinforcing the times where she brought it back, completely ignoring the times she didn't. And over a couple of weeks we will get there with that, and hopefully as she gets a bit older she'll get a bit more interested in toys. But for right now she's not really that interested, and like I say, I'm not just going to show you the good things. That was a bit of a monumental failure, but let's move on to some other areas where I hope I can show you a little bit more success. So let's move on to where we're at with the obedience routine that I've been doing. As you've been seeing, the kind of sit and stay has been going very well. Heel work's been going brilliantly. I would say that all those kind of foundation layers are built now, and what we're doing is kind of just moving on down, good, and what we're doing now is moving on to adding the distraction layers for those things, but we're also utilising sit and stay is the most important thing for a wide variety of issues. One I'm about to show you a little bit when I talk about manners, but we are now moving on to some more formal recall. Now recall is probably one of the most important things you can teach your dog perfectly. Down, good. And somebody's discovered that she can climb on the sofa, so yeah, we're having to use a bit of verbal corrections, move her down when we get in there, but she'll get there. It's all about the puppy experience, is the frustration parts as well as the positive parts. But going back to talking about recall, is you want to set them up for a 100% success rate, which is why I've left it until a little bit later on and put it in more of a clinical environment like this, where I can completely control that. And I've been using more operant conditioning, where I've been letting her do a natural recall and come to me anyway, and then really reinforce that with high value rewards and praise to kind of solidify in her mind of coming to me as an amazing experience, which will then set me up for more ease at this stage where I'm starting to add it as an obedience command. So let's show you how we're doing that. We kind of do it in two ways. The first one is a sit, stay, come drill, and then we'll do a partner drill where two people will call the dog back and forward. But let's see if I can capture this and do it all at the same time. So one sec. Oh, and by the way, if you have noticed that there's a mountain bike in the corner of my room and you're wondering why, there is a logical reason. It's because I'm training her to be a trail dog, so she can come mountain biking with me, and the first step of that is kind of positive association with the big scary metal thing that makes lots of noises. So that's kind of why it's there. I've been feeding some of her meals underneath it every now and again, just throwing some treats so she can kind of go in and around it and just get used to the object that is the bike, and then a little bit of a way away from being able to do any formal trail bike obedience stuff yet, but that's why that's there. But back to recall, let's show that. Sit, yes, good sit, yes, stay, good stay, 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 stay. So as you can see, we put her in a very good solid sit and stay. We've added time and distance, so this is excellent. And now all I'm going to do is going to add in a Mabel, come. Yes! Oh, he's a good girl. He's a good girl. Yes, he's a good girl. He's a good girl. Yes, good girl. and then really ramp up the praise and the reward 100% with treats at this stage. Once you've built up that foundation layer that I talk about, that's where I'll use treats while I'm building the foundation layer, and then very quickly I'll remove those treats and go to verbal praise and reward kind of 50% of the time, treats the other 50%, and slowly bring it down, because you don't want a dog that's dependent on only doing something for you for treats. So you want to quite quickly be able to remove that, yet still get 100% success rates with your commands. But let's try that again. Because you're already so well mannered and understand, I've not even had to command you to go in. So we'll go down to a nice sit. Good. Stay. Good stay. Stay. Good stay. Stay. Good stay. Good stay. Mabel, come. Yes! Good girl. Good girl. Yes! Good girl. Yes! Good. Good girl. So as you can see, quite a simple, straightforward thing. You can do it anywhere. I'm doing it in a quiet, distractionless environment for now. You can see that she's got a collar on, because once I've got this foundation layer built and I start to work it on more advanced areas where there's little bits of distractions, I'll have her on a long line. That way, if at any point she does get distracted, I can reel the long line in and command success. So I only ever use any recall command. So at the minute I'm using come, but once I've got that foundation layer, I'm going to replace the command with 2 pips on a whistle. I'll show you that as we get to that stage. But with a long line, if for any reason at any point she decides to ignore the command, I can reel her in and make sure that it's 100% success rate, because that's the key with recall, is making sure that it's a 100% success rate, and every time they make that decision to come to you, it's the best thing in the world. And then you layer up those distractions, and that's how you can have a perfect recall, no matter whether there's squirrels running off, there's dogs playing, whatever distractions there is, you're under complete control. Right, now let's talk about where we're at with crate training. And crate training is going exceptionally well. I'm very happy with how crate training is going. As you can see, she's still kind of coming in and out as she pleases, and we always keep the crate open unless we're doing any kind of formal drills. You've seen this in videos now. This is kind of my training where we're working on increments of building up time, where she's in there locked in the room on her own with the lock crate, and if she's silent we tick it off and we move on. So as you can see, yesterday we finished our 5-minute sections, and now this morning we're going to be going for our first 10-minuter. So obviously 10 minutes, we're now getting to the point where it is kind of a significant amount of time for it to be on her own, and to expect there to be 0 issues, like there's not been any issues so far, because we've been taking this so steadily and building up the time in baby steps to go from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. That's probably going to be the hardest jump that we're going to do in all of this. If we can get past this, we're well on the way. So this is the first attempt we're going to do it. We're using the highest value reward I've got to help go through this process, and that's utilising the bone. Again, I've got a video discussing crate training in detail over on the Canine Show, but we're going to do that now, and let's bring you guys along for the journey, I suppose, and see how we get on. So again, we've got a very happy pooch that knows exactly what this is. I'm not challenging any of these behaviours because I want to make it such a perfect experience for her. So I'm going to try and do this and getting her excited. She's offered me a sit. Good girl, yes, very good. So I'm going to tell her I like that. And then again, as always, bone goes in the crate. She offers me going in the crate voluntarily. Good girl, yes. Nice and calm. Shut the crate door. Light off. Remove myself as calmly as possible. Set the timer. And obviously I'm not going to make you sit and wait for 10 minutes, but I will set the timer for 10 minutes. I will be perfectly silent. And let's all keep our fingers crossed that in the next 10 minutes we have no crying and she's happy in the crate eating a bone, and we've got off to a good start, as you can see, as you can hear, no crying whatsoever. So now I'm going to shut up, make it seem like I've left the house, because that's what we're building up to, and then just wait out this 10 minutes with fingers crossed that we're going to succeed on this one. 3 minutes down, going very well so far, fingers crossed. 5 minutes down, not a sound. Awesome. nearly 8 minutes in and she has started to cry a little bit. My wife is upstairs moving around getting dressed, and I think that might have been what's kind of triggered it off. So did you hear that tiny little cry? Nothing major whatsoever, so it's a huge improvement from where we were. And like I say, going from 5 minutes to 10 minutes is probably the biggest jump we're going to do. So I'm not going to tick this box. I'm going to give her the whole 10 minutes. I'm going to hope that she doesn't set off badly. I'm going to go in, wait for her to calm down, then let her out the crate, remove the bone as normal, not tick the box, and then we'll try again later on when my wife's not here and moving around upstairs, see if that made any impact. We'll try a few more times. If that doesn't work, then we'll put in another time interval at 7.5 minutes. We'll build up there before we move on to the 10 minutes. There you go, you hear that? So we're starting to have a bit of a meltdown now. So whether she can hear me, even though I'm whispering, probably my wife moving around, because we're in an old cottage, it is very creaky. So I'll keep you updated on how this is going, but dog training is just as much as about failures and overcoming those failures as it is about positives and the wins all the time. So be patient, be relaxed, don't give up, and don't be downhearted if things don't go as well as you'd hope, like they are for me this morning. Fetch went terribly. This is going to end up being a bit of a failure, I think. So back to the drawing board, keep up the hard work, and it all pays off in the end. Now, the 10 minutes is done, and we did have a little bit of crying, but towards about 9.5 minutes to 10 minutes, the crying stopped. And I've come in, and as you can see, she's resettled back. I don't know if you can see that, because I purposely made it so dark in there for her. But if you couldn't see that, she's just resettled back down to a bone, which is amazing. I wanted to quickly get the camera. So, good girl. So I've been very calm. Yes, good girl. Good girl, Mabel. Good. Now I've opened the crate, and what I want to happen is exactly what's happened. I've opened the crate and she hasn't bolted out. She's actually quite content to stay in there and carry on working on a bone. So even though that might have seemed like a failure, because I'm not going to tick my boxes, nothing more than a minor blip really. And like I say, it's probably more to do with the moving around and her realising that she's on her own when there's other people here that's triggered a little bit of crying, but nothing major. So like I say, just not going to tick the box because we want 3 successful attempts before we move on. So I'm not going to write this off as a full failure. Minor blip is all. So huge progress though, and like I say, the door's open now. She's stayed in there, she's happy to be in there, she's working on a bone. So I'm going to remove the bone now because we're conditioning that she only gets her absolute best, favourite, amazing thing when she's in the crate. So the last thing we're kind of working on at the minute as well is manners, and that's kind of what I want to update you about. And manners is so easy to work on when you've got your sit and stay nailed. That's why I work on sit and stay so quickly, and I'm so thorough with it, because you can then use sit and stay for all types of manners, whether it's, if you look down there, so she knows I've got her food and she's already politely in a sit and stay. She's crying a little bit, but I'm just going to completely ignore that, and she's going to learn very quickly over the next coming weeks that crying never gets her anything she wants. But when you've got a good sit and stay, you can use that for waiting to get up onto the furniture. You can use that for getting in and out of the car, like you saw me do at the park the other day. And most importantly, you can drill it with food. And now this is a drill that I do with every dog I've ever owned for their entire lives at every mealtime. Never leave food down, always give them food at set meal times and use this drill. Now we're absolutely getting there with Mabel, because I'm going to show you. So she's already in a nice sit and stay, which I'm happy with. And I'm going to put the food down. So this is fantastic for, not only for manners, but it's also brilliant for resource guarding and brilliant for impulse control. Things that are all really important in wider ownership of dogs. So I've already got her in a nice sit, so I'm going to put the food down. Sit, stay. Now I'm standing over the food, stay. And I'm claiming the food. So if you look down at her now, you'll see that she's nicely in a sit and stay, and she's looking at me for direction, which I love. And now she's already got this nailed, and she will happily kind of sit. She'll cry a little bit, but this is just out of frustration and her having this internal debate as I want the food, but I'm listening to what I'm told. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick it back up. And I'm going to repeat this drill again, and I'll put it back down. I might pick it back up again. So I'm sit, good, stay, good, and pick it back up. Especially as she broke then, definitely going to be picking it back up. So I'm going to put, she's back in a sit, good, stay, good, stay. Now I really like this eye contact that I've got. I don't like that she's looked away, yes, good. Good girl, yes. then I tell her that she can have it, and I'm going to let her do it. And as this progresses, what I will start to do is I'll put her back in another sit and stay, and I'll lift the food up. I'll show you, this is going to be the first time I've done this actually, so I'm going to show it you now. This is kind of more of an advanced resource guarding drill, and it's not something I'd recommend for everybody, but I'm very confident in Mabel's temperament and all the preemptive resource guarding work I've done already. So I'm going to come back over, I'm claiming the food, I'm very much standing over the top of it. I'm going to ask her to sit. Good, sit, yes, good. And I'm lifting it back up again, waiting for this eye contact back, very much claiming that this food experience is ours. This isn't something that you need to guard, and as long as you look to me to direction, everything's okay. So I'm going to put it back down, stay. Very much standing over the top of it, stay. Really liking this eye contact. Yes, good girl. And I'm going to let her go back to it. And as she gets older, I'm going to drill that more and more to the point where I'm going to put her food down, put her in a sit and stay, and more for the sake of the drill and the training protocol, we'll do 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'll come into another room and expect her to wait in the stay before I give her the break command, and then let her enjoy the food. And then, like I say, at intervals, I might come and take it off from her, put her back in a sit and stay. It might seem cruel, and it's definitely more of an advanced tactic, but if you're kind of comfortable in doing that, it's not only brilliant at building kind of relationships and trust, and you should never use it as a punishment, but it's just a really good drill, especially for a large guarding breed like this, to have that level of control and minimising resource guarding. And especially because I've got young children around, once this is more nailed and I'm comfortable with it, I'll get my children to do the same drill, obviously as I'm observing it, but that will minimise any worries around, for example, she's working on a bone or a meal and something happens and I look away and my 1-year-old toddler wanders over and puts a hand in a bowl. Obviously I need to understand that that dog has zero resourcing guarding tendencies, because that's where accidents happen. So again, it might seem a little bit cruel, it might seem over the top, but it's about having that dog understand that you look to me for 100% of direction. No matter what happens, you never resort to aggression towards guarding tendencies. You always look to me for direction, and if you do that, I will make sure that everything's fine. That way I keep my family safe, I keep myself safe, we keep the public safe, everything's happy. Now that video was kind of jam-packed with loads of things for you to take in there. I know it can be overwhelming, but that's, like I always talk about, that's what my Perfect Puppy course is for. You can go and check that out, and that gives you the step-by-step guide from day one of what to do at what day, what week, what month, building up that foundation layer and building up from that. So that's, as much as this whole thing can seem overwhelming, I've broke it down into the easy to follow steps on there, and I'm trying to just keep you updated with how things are going here on this channel. And as you saw, I haven't hidden anything today. We've had failures with fetch, didn't go very well. The crate training was kind of a minor blip, that wasn't brilliant, but you can see with obedience, resource guarding, things are going brilliantly. So it's all about just being consistent, implementing the program, implementing it step by step. Like you're seeing, I've kind of hit a little bit of a snag in certain areas, so I'm going to drop it back down, like with the crate training and with fetch. And we're going to carry on rebuilding those bottom layers and then move up and advance and progress. So that's all it's about. It's just about being consistent and putting the hard work up front and stopping problem behaviours from occurring in the first place, so that you know that when they are past these frustrating puppyhood stages, that you can move on with a dog that is a pleasure to be around and safe and under control at all times. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, click that like button, and if you are new here, definitely don't forget to subscribe so you can stay on top and join me for my journey. And hopefully there'll be some bits of information that you can pick up for your dogs, no matter what their age and no matter what their breed, as we're progressing. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Will and Mabel.